Three, two, one, zero.
What's up, guys? Had a quick request for me to make a video kind of outlining how I got into real estate and what that looked like. So I just wanted to put together a quick timeline for you guys. With that being said, some of these ages are a little bit rough, okay? It should be generally around the age listed, but I was pretty young then, so can't quite remember. But anyhow, so first kicking it off, when I was just 6 years old, when I was really young, I always wanted to be an inventor. That was one thing that like my mom sewed into me. Was like, yeah, this is my little inventor. She would introduce me like that, and so that played a big part in my development, being like, oh yeah, I'm someone that comes up with ideas, that wants to invent things, create things. So that was cool. That was something really a gift from my mom. Another gift that I got from my mom was her playing Rich Dad Poor Dad in the car, just as we were driving around, running errands, things like that. So Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, as you likely know, talks about just how you can live life either in like a rat race or you could amass wealth, and how that can allow you to live a free and prosperous type of life. So anyhow, that was really exciting to me. I thought that was very cool. And so that was when I was really young. After that, moving into probably like 8 to 10 years old, my mom actually owns her own little business, right? So she owns a music school. They have something like 800 students that she absolutely crushes it with, and it's really fun. And so that was always me seeing my mom work, run that school, what an entrepreneur looks like, how much effort it takes, all that fun stuff. And so she would always encourage me, and other little things are giving me opportunities. So one was creating a snack bar at her music school where I could like sell snacks. So I'd go to Sam's Club, buy snacks, take them to the music school, and then literally sell them there, marked up a couple cents, and be like, woohoo, this is awesome. Most of the time I just ate all the snacks, but it was still a lot of fun. And one of my first real, ventures into business and what it looked like and what it took. So snack shops, book sales, we had a friend that wrote her own book, and so gave me some books to sell. I did miserably at that, but it was still a fun experience trying to sell books. And then MLMs, right? So bumping into people that would pitch you on an MLM. When I was 8 to 10, some of those pitches can sound very enticing. I was like, wow, that's awesome. We're gonna make so much money. I didn't have really the faculty in brain-wise and whatever skill-wise to really move on that and to do well with it, but something that I toyed around with to try to figure out. Probably 12 years old, started making and selling science projects, right, at my school, which was pretty fun. Sold probably all of maybe 6 science projects, but that was my first time where I was actually ordering certain things wholesale, like boxes, stuff like that, but all on like a really, really low, small scale. And so that ultimately fizzled out, didn't work. And then I had a locker snack bar that got shut down by the principal, so that was a bummer. It was competing with their vending machines, so that didn't work. I went to a really small prep school, and so that was probably a solid portion of the sports budget was coming from the vending machines, so that got shut down. And then, so this was probably 12 up till 17. I'm really just busy with school, busy with being a competitive gymnast and stuff like that, but always wanting to invest time into being financially, I guess an entrepreneur, right? Building companies and being financially set so I can help family and whatnot and get cool things for myself or whatever, right? That was my motivation. So 17 years old, I get invited to a pitch-a-thon. So you may have been to one of these. That's where you go to an event, they're telling you, we're gonna teach you how to make money, it's gonna be awesome. And then you sit through probably 10 hour-long pitches stacked on top of each other consecutively, right? So the person comes up, they give some content. At the end, there's it's $2,000 normally, but now it's $499. Go buy it in the back, right? That type of stuff. And so I went through one of those. I thought it was awesome. I was like, this is cool. There's so many different, these people really want me to do well. That's why they brought this offering, so that I could do well. And so I could learn about this. At that point, luckily, I didn't have a credit card or any way to pay for them. So I literally could not buy anything. Otherwise, I would have bought probably as much as I could. So that was actually a good thing for me. But during that pitch-a-thon, one of the speakers said, hey, I can teach you how to take $10 in real estate and make $30,000. I was like, $10? Like, what the? So at that point, I wasn't the guy that would like raise my hand and ask questions or anything like that. That wasn't my jam. Like, I didn't even raise my hand in school. Like, I did not enjoy that. But for this, I was like, what? Like real estate. Even going back to when I listened to Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'd always wanted to amass rentals. Like I wanted to own rentals, have passive income, right? I was like, that would be really cool. That's what I want. So when he said like I could do a transaction in real estate for $10, I was like, how does that work? Because you need a lot of money, you know, to buy a property. So I was like, okay, I got to ask this guy. So there's an opportunity afterwards where he was taking questions in the back, right? Also signing people up. And I said like, hey, can I ask a question? He's like, yeah. I was like, did you mean $10 or did you mean $10,000, right? And he's like, $10, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I was like, oh, what? You're like, what the? That's awesome. So that was when I was 17. After that, I was getting my hair cut. I was explaining to the barber, the guy that cuts my hair, like, hey, have you ever heard of this? You know, $10 to make $30,000 in real estate. And he said, yeah, I cut the hair of a guy that, you know, does that all the time. I was like, what? You know, like, introduce me to this dude. He's like, well, I can't give you his name, but I give you his company's name. He just launched like a social media thing or whatever for real estate. And I was like, okay, cool. So he gave me that. I reached out to him on there. And that's what started my internship, unpaid internship to kick it off with Cody Sperber, which you've probably heard of, does Clever Investor, that type of stuff. So I started interning with him and then ultimately was employed with him, so helped on the education side and on the real estate investing side, being employed. So the next thing here was probably when I was about 19 years old, there was this really big changing point. So up to this point, now I'm employed here. I'm making okay money, but not in my brain. I don't own my own company. Like I wanted to own my own company. When I was probably around 11 or 12 years old, I remember thinking like, okay, when I'm 21, that's when I need to be a billionaire, right? Like I need to be a billionaire at that point. We talk about, in another video, we talk about bad motivators. I had lots of those. So I was like, all right, I gotta be a billionaire. I gotta have tons of rental properties. And now I'm over here, I'm 19. I'm like, I got none of that, right? I'm working really hard. I'm working 2 jobs. One's with Cody. One was a job at my church. And then I was also in school. And so I felt like I was doing all this stuff, but I wasn't making any progress. And I was really hitting this roadblock, right? And I was like, man, what is going on? How come I can't push through this? And so the change happened. What I started to realize was that I was basing my significance on like who I was, my value, on what I was going to amass, right? I was going to make all this money. If I didn't make it, I was a failure, and it was going to be bad. You know, like I had to do that in order to prove to others and prove to myself that I was a success, and that meant a lot, right? I had to do that. And so I was really stressed about that, and I felt like I was trying absolutely everything I could. I was working, working 7 days a week, all this stuff to try and become successful, and it wasn't working. And so I was like, what is going on? And so this next bit, the biggest thing I think when people share their stories is in order for people to benefit from them, they have to be truthful, right? And so I'm Christian, professing Christian, love God, he's the bomb, and he plays a huge part in my story. So even if that's not your jam, me doing right by you would be to include it because that's truthful. So basically what happened here when I was 19 is I went to God and I was like, God, I've been trying to do all this stuff. I've been really trying to make this happen and been working hard to get it, and it's just not working. It's just not fulfilling. And one of the things I felt like God put on my heart was like, who do you think has the best plan for you? Do you think it's you or do you think it's me? And I was like, oh crap, like God, obviously, I was like, obviously you, God, God has to have the best plan for us, right? And I was like, okay, well, I'm really striving after my own plan. I'm not striving after, God's. Right? I'm not trying to give him anything and let him work with my life. Instead, I'm trying to control it. I'm trying to make myself get to my own dream, my own plan. And so that was the turning point. That turning point was where I said, you know what, God, instead of me striving after something that I think I want, right? Instead, I want to just give it to you, and then you control it, you run it, whatever that is, right? And if specifically I thought in my brain, if that means that I need to be a missionary in India, make no money, and little outskirt towns in India, preaching the gospel or whatever, then that's what it is. The only reason why, God, you would give that to me is because that was actually the best plan for me, right? I thought maybe my plan wasn't the best plan. I just want God's, whatever that is. So when I did that, I was like, all right, I'm basically, Lord, I surrender to you. I want your will over my will, and whatever that looks like, right? That's what I want to pursue. That's what I want to go for. And huge weight was lifted, right? Because when I give it to God, it's not on my plate anymore, right? It's not my responsibility to carry that. It's now God's taking it. He's running with it. I'm saying, God, whatever it is, I'm good with it. So you set it up. And so I just consistently did that, right? It made it more of a kind of a ritual, something I did every day. In the morning, praying for 10 minutes, and at night, praying for 10 minutes. Like just myself with God and just giving that to Him, right? And spending time with Him in those moments. Okay, well, really, that was like a domino effect, a trigger for all types of awesome things coming into my life. So once that happens, things like, I had been in this really kind of a holding pattern for a couple years at that point, right? Working the same job, making the same amount of money, just kind of cruising, right? Still in school, working hard at school, right? And basically just tons of additional blessings just started falling out, started coming out of nowhere. Cody co-signed for a car, so I got a nice car. I was like, this is awesome. Bought me a suit, which was really cool. I was like, sweet. And then we switched up the structure, so now I was a partner with Cody in our investment business instead of being an employee. That was a huge difference, right? I had now the opportunity to make an owner's share of the profit and to start to grow that business. It was like blessing after blessing after blessing. So from there, so after that changing point about 19, it's cool when I gave stuff to God, that's when I started to even realize the desires that He had already placed in my heart, right? So most of the time I feel like His plan actually aligns quite a bit with ours if we're willing to give it to Him, which is pretty cool. But so from there, so we did that. That was until I think about 22 or so. Then I started my own investment firm called Atlas Investments. So I did my own wholesale real estate from that. And then in 2016, started KeyGlee with my current partners, which are Hunter, Jamil, and Rahima, which I love dearly and are super awesome. So, and we have been cruising along with KeyGlee since then. So that is kind of my trajectory. As far as our current strategies, when those began, a lot of that was born in between starting our own firm and then moving into building KeyGlee, all that stuff. A lot of that, huge credit to both Jamil and Hunter for those strategies that we use now that allow us to be really successful, and that I get to have the fun of sharing with you guys. So anyhow, that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments. Would love to get them answered for you. Other than that, appreciate you guys liking, subscribing. It's really cool. So see you guys in the next video.